you can, so we can have that argument. The American labor doesn't want to be picking the peaches and the apples, just like the Europeans don't, right? So let's be clear on this. So for people, you can't reduce economics to simple terms, but let me try. After the British territorial empire ended, their continuation in global dominance was on the basis of the financial empire. That as long as we hold all the gold reserves of the world, for some reasons best known to us, as long as all the financial transactions all over the world happen through us and our offshore entities, we still control the world. You control the world through money, even if you don't control the territory. So that's how the British were carrying on business for decades after the territorial empire came to a close. The Americans have been carrying on business in a very, very simple way. They don't do the manufacturing because that's the dirty job. They do the research, IP and design. So Qualcomm has the IP on the chips that are in every single mobile phone in the world. Okay, doesn't make a difference whether you have an iPhone or you have an Android. That communication chip, which does your 5G, does your Bluetooth, is made by Qualcomm, but it's designed by Qualcomm. They don't manufacture a single chip. Okay, but they are a rich company because every single iPhone sold, they get a commission on. They get a license fee. Every single phone sold. Okay, so that's how the Americans work. The second way on how they work is that if the Americans are running billions and hundreds of billions of dollars of deficits, if their hole in their exchequer is $37 trillion, you'd think the economy is bankrupt. Imagine if Sri Lanka or somebody else had even $37 billion of a hole. They would be bankrupt. But the reason the Americans are not bankrupt is because of the rest of us. So India has $700 billion of foreign exchange reserve. The Chinese have, used to have more than $2.5 trillion of foreign exchange reserves. The problem is, what do you do with the money? Okay, let's say you've got 1 lakh crores. What do you do with the money? Keep it under your bed. There is no country in the world which has a bank big enough to take that deposit other than the Americans. So the money always goes back to America. That's how their system works. So they're not worried about any deficit they're running with the Chinese, because the Chinese can only spend X amount of money in other parts of the world, because all those projects become financially unviable. So they have to park the money back in the US Treasury, because the world runs on dollars. And that's it. That's how they're running the world. Okay. All right. Sharad, quick 30 seconds, because the others are maybe waiting patiently. I want to get Ninad and Ambassador Muni also in. Yeah, quickly, 30 seconds.
I'll wrap this bit. The gold reserves in the US, somehow the financial pundits of the US, the think tank of US, the financials, the economists, they know somehow that dollar is ultimately going to sink. So what they have done as a hedge to that, their gold reserves are 8,000 tons plus now. Why do you think American Federal Reserve or Americans should be collecting gold if they know their dollar is going great guns? The fact of the matter is they know this is not going to go forward. Yes. 8,000 ton plus of gold reserves, that's a
okay, so there you have it. And this is interesting for people watching the broadcast. So why are gold prices at record highs and still continuing to go higher? Okay, the only reason is not because we are having more weddings and buying more gold. The only reason is because the United States is buying more gold to hedge against the dollar, which they are worried about, and the entire rest of the world that wants to move away from the dollar is also buying more gold to add in their more reserves, which is why global prices are gold prices are inexplicable. They've doubled. Gold, which is supposed to be a very steady, safe, measured hedge against other capital assets, I've had a gold ETF which is doubled in 4 years. I can't comprehend it. It was supposed to be one of those safe investments that you park your money away and forget about for a few years. It's doubled in 4 years and it's continuing to rise. It should make no sense, but it is. Okay, hang a second. Let me get Ambassador Muni and Ninad into this. Ambassador Muni, so we've had a chance to absorb. Now my straightforward question to you is, have we walked the very complicated tightrope, and have we seen enough takeaways for us to say that, all right, in that economic flux being created by Donald Trump, both of us have a confluence of interest between India and China?
Well, I think, look, I mean, you have discussed enough of economics, and I am not an expert of economics. I can't tell you more about that. But what I can guess is that the present phase of a thaw and new openings in India-China relationship is strategic. And that is a message which has been sent to the US that don't consider that India has no options. But that doesn't mean that you have solved your problems, as you see. I mean, I agree with you that China is not going to be an alternative to the Trump tariffs, and India can solve its problem in no way. We have been talking about reducing the trade deficit with China for years on now. It's not only yesterday that we started talking about that. We have been talking it much before Galwan. And Chinese have always been assuring us that they will do something. What is the result? The result is that the deficit is growing year by year. Now, why is this happening? This is largely because of growing economy in China, in India, and the Chinese capacity to fill in the gaps. They are the one who are the great manufacturers of the world. So I don't think the economic solution will come out of this relationship. But certainly it gives a strong message to Trump particularly and to the US that your unreliability is pushing us in a direction which you did not want. You know, the one of the if you watch carefully what Modi and Xi have been saying in their initial statements and whatever promises they have made, I mean, I agree with Mr. Corey that let us wait and watch what really happens, because the journey from rivals and competitors to partners is not going to be an easy one. There are no honey and roses there, and there are a lot of other problems. There is a Tibet problem, there is a Taiwan issue, there is a Pakistan issue, there is a whole question of security guards in India against the Chinese investments. How are we going? There are a lot of other issues. It will take a lot of time. But what we are saying is that strategically, if China, Russia, and India come together, they may not change the world order, but they'll certainly give a strategic jolt to the US, and certainly in Asia Pacific, Indo-Pacific region, where the US wants to perpetuate its dominance and hegemony, is going to become very difficult for the US if these three countries join their hands in Asia. Now, this is where the challenge is before the Chinese and before the Indians. Chinese are talking a lot of rhetorics. You know, in this visit, there is a huge symbolism, like the meeting of that is special representative of President Xi.
Yeah, Sai Chi,
and
yes.
And the dinner which President Xi has offered to him, and the kind of welcome which he was given by Indian dances and all that. There is a huge symbolism that we are warming up to each other. And but in the messages, she was all the time underlining broader strategic communication and vision between India and China. And India was continuously emphasizing most of the issues which are bilateral. Chinese were not emphasizing bilateral. Border issue. I mean, yeah, when Wang Yi was in India, there is a very positive statement made of early harvest. And particularly in the Western sector, they are thinking of delimiting and they are drawing the maps again to say that, okay, whatever areas we agree, let us stabilize them. Very positive statement. But when they sit down and do that, I don't know, 2005, please recall, India and China had agreed to have proper guidelines for solving the border.
Yes.
Political guidelines for solving the border. Nothing moved on.
Yeah,
Later on.
I remember that. Shiv Shankar Menon said exactly this, that we have a technical agreement